Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Saturday morning. Got a great show in store for you today. Got a lot on the menu. We'll be talking college football, basketball, baseball, recruiting. Talk some Wimbledon. Talk some Major League Baseball. There's a lot to talk about. We are leaving tomorrow, heading to Nashville for SEC Media Days, and want to say first of all a special shout out, a thank you to sponsors like George Gaddis Home Innovation. If you are doing anything in your home, office, man cave, whatever, you want to control everything with the touch buttons on your iPhone, it is the way to do it. GaddisHomeInnovation.com. George Gaddis, known him 45 years. Absolutely solid gold. We'll be talking a lot about them this week during Media Week because a lot of people have the giant man cave, the giant entertainment center, and they do a great job with it. Also, Miss Rubens Rubs out of Birmingham. Good friend Jay Evers went to Auburn with me. Miss Rubens Rubs, and Dave Tompkins knows this being a Birmingham guy. They've been around since 1935. Miss Rubens Rubs down in Montgomery, started by a couple of Greek immigrants. They got the black magic, the white magic, the seafood magic, the Creole magic. Now they've got the marinades, which are really, really, really good. I think that black magic, I put it on brisket. MJ does. I eat the brisket. I don't have the patience to go 15 hours. He does. He is strong. He can do it. Miss Rubens Rubs, another one of our sponsors going to SEC Media Days. Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. We were out there yesterday. Good gosh, they've got so many great brands coming in. They have a ginormous order of Filson. They're the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast in the United States. All that's starting to come in here in the next month. We'll be filling you in on that. And web-footed kennels, our kennel, your kennel, Jonesboro, Arkansas. My good friend Chris Aiken, I've known 28 years through the Mid-South Hunting Retriever Club. One of the absolute best people, has a large facility up there with technical ponds, lakes, and everything. Proud to have them as a sponsor, along with all of our other sponsors like Red River Ford Toyota, House Industries, Tom Martin's Body Shop, Gateway Tire and Service Centers, and we'll talk about all of them throughout the show as I swat mosquitoes is over here. I'm going to tell you something, Dave. We got a little mechanical engineering issue with the air conditioning. We're waiting for them to come out here and inspect it. By the way, there are these little zapper things that you can order. I don't know where they came from.
Zapper's going crazy.
I bet you we had at least 200 we pulled out of there. And it's just when the air conditioning, we're waiting for the inspection of the unit, and then they're going to have to do something to it. But we're heading to Nashville tomorrow. But, man, the mosquitoes over here are lethal. I've never seen anything like it. But, look, a lot to talk about today. Maury Gaston should be joining us here in just a couple of minutes. Award-winning sports writer, Basketball Writers Hall of Fame, recent inductee at the Final Four in Houston this year, Kevin Scarbinsky, Birmingham News, 35 years, the Birmingham Lead. And now he's got a new newsletter, Dave, Scarbo Knows. Kind of a play on words. He covered Bo Jackson and Auburn. Scarbo Knows. That's brilliant. There goes Stedman Chile on his way to Bromberg's Jewelers in Mountain Brook Village. And holy
Johnny Davis bursting through the line like a tank.
Oh, Coach Bryan it'll take a pack of Chesterfields to get over this one, but we'll be back after this message from Bromberg's Jewelers, proud sponsor of Alabama football.
Here's Jerry Duncan. Thank you, Jerry, for that very insightful commentary.
Yeah. Jerry, what's going on out there? Looks like there's doing a lot of splits on the line of scrimmage. I'll tell you what, nobody can say it better. Jerry Duncan, he is one of the funniest people. I've seen him when I get invited to some of those quarterback club meetings, and in Birmingham is the nice guest of Maury and people down there, and that guy is awesome. And I know people that know him, Auburn and Alabama people. They love that guy.
You see him, and all of a sudden it's 1978 again, and Tony Nathan, and Jeff Rutledge, Ozzie Newsome, and the tide was rolling the way it used to roll.
Yeah, it's a well. I think they're rolling okay now. I think they're pretty good.
I wouldn't
Maury
joining. Then Auburn had the backfield with Cribbs, Brooks, and Andrews.
Yeah.
How does that team not win the national championship?
When you had P.W. Underwood as your defensive coordinator, that's what happens. They didn't come here from Sikkim. They had some great players, but you had James Brooks out of Warner Robins, Georgia, 5'9", 167-pound running back who played on a team with Stump Mitchell, who played at the Citadel, and also Ron Simmons, the great nose guard at Florida State, who was on that 11-0 team in 1979, Bobby Bowden's fourth year. They had two quarterbacks, Wayne Woodham and Jimmy Jordan, the last dual threat quarterback that I've seen at Florida State, but an incredible time. Don't forget Buddy Martin on with us in hour number 2. John Hartwell is going to check in for a little bit. He was over Birmingham over the last couple of days, AD at ULM. Hey, we're here 6 days a week, 25 shows a month, 50 hours of content a month. That's over 600 hours of content a year. Do your gazendas, 12 times 50, naught equals square. You know, I love it in the country when you ask people about math. You don't get into math or trigonometry or calculus. You say, now, you good with your gazendas, JW? Well, you damn right I am. 10 goes into 100. 100 goes into, I was going to talk about it, but my gazenda don't go that far. But, hey, follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And let's just do this real quick. You know, Dave and Maury, having y'all on here, insightful, wise people, sports fans, you travel a lot and everything like that. You know, I think when we get up to media days in Nashville, I've seen multiple emails about construction in downtown Nashville, where we're going to be parking. I think everything's at the Nashville Hyatt. And, you know, I know in the past I've stayed up there at the Omni, designed by Brassfield Gorey and built by Brassfield Gorey, Miller Gorey, you know, Sigma Nu from Auburn. I have to get that in there, and was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Gave one of the greatest speeches ever, July of 2014 at the Omni. And he said, you know, you're going to go after every big job out there. God, he sounds like John Forney. But he goes, you're going to go after every big job out there. And someone said, if you've ever stayed in a hospital or been to a school, anywhere from Miami to D.C., over to Indianapolis, down to New Orleans, Brassfield and Gorey probably built it or built part of it. And Miller Gorey, and I've not met him before, great man, as is his son Jim. It was a KA at Auburn. Those guys do so much for Birmingham, as y'all know. Miller Gorey said, you go after every big job, you're not going to get them all. Yeah, see, you're not going to get every one of these jobs you go after. He said, but build relationships. And he said, you'd be surprised how many times 2 or 3 years later, you might get a call from Dave Tompkins at Tompkins International Construction. It says, Miller, Dave Tompkins over here in the Low Country. How are you? Good. Listen, that $1.5 billion hospital you're building, there's about a $350 million piece of that we're just not that strong on. 6 years ago, you helped us out when we were, first starting, giving us a $400 million job. I want y'all to take this 350 and fix it. And I know you can do it better than we can. Why? Absolutely. That's one of the greatest speeches I've ever heard someone give. And, and it smart people. And, don't ever forget to do that with people. You're not going to get every job you go after. You're not going to get every recruit you go after. But with the portal, he may be there at the start of the next semester. So, anyway, sidelines.live, us everywhere. Thank you.
Rob, if your listeners want to see that speech, they can Google Sigma Nu Hall of Fame Miller Gorey, and it'll show up. It's 14 minutes long.
Yeah, and I was there. You were there, Mom and Dad, Wilson, and that was because they built. By the way, Brassfield Gorey built that Omni in downtown Atlanta, and we're really jacked up about going to media days tomorrow. Since we started the show, we've been going each year. Of course, and we didn't start until August 9th of 2019, and we had already media days had been a month before that, but. The next year, there was no in-person media days because of the virus. A lot of things are blamed on the virus, but they didn't have it. But I want to tell you, Herb Vincent and the people at the SEC office. Herb Vincent is so kind to us. And when you go there, I always make a point to say thank you for everything you do for us, because I know a lot of people are, the BMW crowd, bitch, moan, and whine. I go up there and thank him for everything he does. He's a great fella. Came from Louisiana, came from LSU. But, man, there'll be over 1,000 media personnel from all over the country there. And by the way, Dave, I was watching MeTV this morning. They had the cartoons on there. It was a Popeye with a horse racing episode. He goes, and number 2 coming around the corner, and here comes number 5 head pulling back here. I mean, where do they find these guys that can do that at the horse track?
that is a unique skill, and there's the track announcer at Churchill Downs. It's just wonderful to talk to him, and it's you're talking to a sports. Here we are on Savant Saturday. And track announcers have to be savants, and they have to be able to, call something with 15 things happening at once. Just like the opening monologue here today, in the first 9 minutes, Rob covered about 173 topics, and so it's a pretty there's a pretty big intersection of skills between what you do and what a track announcer at a racetrack has. So it's very, very unique skill, hard to replicate. It cannot be replaced by Chat GPT or AI or anything like that. It's all in the human brain.
You reckon Frank Duffy could translate his baseball skills to the horse track?
I think he could. Frank,
yeah, because there's a lot of racing down in Louisiana at the Busch track, so I think so, and I'm so happy for Frank.
Atlanta. Yeah, he's in Atlanta, but he goes to Audubon Park down there with the track. Isn't that where the track is, at Audubon Park?
Yeah, then there's a bunch of tracks down there. That's where Calvin Burrell and some the other famous jockeys had their start. But there's Fairgrounds in New Orleans is where the racetrack is. Same venue as Jazz Fest.
Okay, but they don't have them at the same time, thank God.
No, that'd be boy. The infield would be something there. Yeah.
Yeah, it would. It would. I got to say to both of you, Dave, that coverage that we get with you and Maury, made the connection with us during the Kentucky Derby and the lead up to the Kentucky Derby. Let's see. I'm going to just give you an Emmy. That was fantastic. Getting some questions right now. And I had Billy Roberts on Thursday from over in Atlanta. We were over in Atlanta last week for about 6 days. Billy's a 4-5 tennis player, great tennis player. And, he wanted to play at Georgia, so he went there his freshman year, and he didn't work out. But, he transferred to Auburn to become the 13th person in his family to get a degree from there. But Wimbledon's going on right now.
Yep.
And, we've all traveled. History, traditions, heroes. That's the mantra that Robert Durham, John Hearn, Maury have given me in that 26-page handout. But I do love tennis. I grew up playing tennis. I did not play golf. If I did, I don't think I'd ever gone home. It's addictive. It's the crack of sports. You hit that ball down the fairway, there's nothing like it. But Wimbledon and tennis, Billy Roberts pointed out, it's been 20 years since an American won one of the majors, Andy Roddick. 20 years. Prior to that, we think about Jimmy Connors, think about John McEnroe. Andre Agassi was really good, but we haven't had it. And Pete Sampras, he won a lot. But as my dad said, boy, I'll take McEnroe screaming at a ref any day versus that boring Greek, But it takes a lot of players to get there. And we got to get more people playing tennis and these outdoor sports. How do we do it?
Great question. Well, I can't wait to watch the finals tomorrow. Tomorrow could be a changing of the guard. Unfortunately, it will not be a changing of the guard to American tennis. Yeah. But, when you think of Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, they basically ruled tennis for the past almost 20 years since Sampras. Yeah. And tomorrow, I think Djokovic will pull it out. But if he doesn't, then this could be a changing of the guard. The old guys, giving way to the new generation. And so it's going to be a very compelling match. Boy, how fun would it be to be in the United Kingdom right now? You got the Scottish Open going on, and then you have the Wimbledon finals, and next week you have the Open Championship. I wish I was over there right now.
Well, you could be here fighting the mosquitoes in the Mississippi Delta. At least 200 out of this one alone. I recommend you buy these things. And but Maury, you travel between the two of y'all. Carl Malden would have loved to do a commercial with you about the American Express card. Don't leave home without it. That guy, man, he was the thing about traveling. And Billy pointed this out. They've changed Wimbledon. It's a week or two later because they come from the French Open to play at Wimbledon on the grass courts. It's a lot of, wear and tear on your body. But yeah, you know what? Growing up, think about the 4th of July, McEnroe board. Tennis was big. And I'm going to tell you, we're going to have a guest. A friend of mine is going to be on later in the show this morning, just for a couple of minutes to talk. And we'll bring him on later in the week. Ed Murphey, his father won the SEC mile, was close friends, I think roommates with Johnny Majors when he was at Tennessee. This will be their 7th year to put this track and field classic on in Memphis. And it's going to be number 1 or 2 in the world this year. And I'm going to let him expand on that. I've known Eddie since kindergarten, but track and field, swimming, tennis, when you get outside of America, the most well-known American athletes are tennis, they're swimmers, and they're track and field. Would y'all agree? And I'm an athlete.
Absolutely. And to your question about how does the United States get back in the conversation in tennis?
Yeah. Hey, hold that thought. I'm looking. It's a Saturday. We got to be tight on the brakes. Mildred's over there with the sands through the hourglass, the old timer there. We're going to be right back. I want to get into this question, and Maury can give some keen insight on it as well. But we got to get people off the couch and on the court. That's our new mantra. We'll be right back on Saturday. God bless America. Don't ever forget it. Right, Dave we have the empty chair formation. He'll be right back. But before Dave comes back, I want to say, big story today. Today is the day for 4-star cornerback Jalen Crawford, who's set to pick between Florida, LSU, and Auburn, as they say up in the Northeast, Auburn. Florida made a late push, but I still really like Auburn's chances, feeling like 85% on AU. Jalen Crawford, Parkview, Lilburn, Georgia, Parkview High School in Lilburn, Georgia. And that's where Brad Lester, great running back, remember him in 2005, who now trains running backs, played. So, look, this recruiting stuff, it never stops. But let's get back to you, Dave. You were talking about how do we get more people playing tennis and sports in the country. You were in the Army, and you know damn well today you got guys that can't even do a pull-up or a push-up coming into basic training. But you know what? I did a story in 1989 on the fitness training unit at Fort Benning. They had guys that could not do a push-up or a pull-up back then. And I went out there and did a bunch of them, and they said, why don't you just sign up, Browne? And I was like, well, not today. I should have done it. But, I mean, it's a big deal. It's a national security issue. But you got to have a ton of players playing just to get a McEnroe or a Sampras or a Jimmy Connors, don't you?
Yeah, I mean it's not one of our national pastime sports anymore. At least it doesn't seem to be.
Yeah.
Soccer's past it. You can argue that lacrosse is about to pass it, and so those are the cool sports that the kids want to play, and therefore the parents support. But there's no reason why it can't come back, because you only need an hour to play a tennis match, and you need 4 hours to play a golf round. There needs to be a hero to follow. So a McEnroe, and we haven't had that in a long time. The Williams sisters retiring, I think that's kind of part of the story in women's tennis. And there's been no dominant female emerge since then. So we got to somehow curate a couple heroes on both genders, and them being their own gender, if you will. A little political commentary there.
Yeah, no, it's right and wrong.
And I think if we can curate that, then tennis can make a comeback, because there's been, every year goes by, all 4 majors in tennis, and we never see an American. The last thing was Serena's retirement, but there's really been nothing sort of before that or since that, and so I think that's, in my opinion, that's one of the big reasons.
Well, there's a little bit of commentary here from a listener. I like this one here. Floyd R. Turbo American, Omaha, Nebraska, says, instead of worrying about what dressing room people go into, we ought to worry about getting world champions in tennis and every other sport. And I agree with that. We're wasting time on a bunch of stupid nonsense. And Maury, you were just in Washington all week. With Manufacturer Alabama. Look, most people that have not been to Washington don't realize what's going on up there, but what was your takeaway?
Well, I want to answer a question that you just asked before I get into that. But so much of this starts in the schools, and we've taken recess out of the schedule. These kids need to go outside and play and run and play Red Rover and all those things that all these other people think kids are getting their feelings hurt over. You're looking at Exhibit A of the kid that couldn't compete athletically, but I got out there and I took my lumps and learned from it.
Yep.
And then, Rob, you've mentioned this before. To graduate from Auburn, when we did, you had to know how to swim, because you had to take fundamentals in PE, and passing a swim test was a requirement of passing fundamentals.
Yeah.
Well, I never played a uniform sport, but my very last quarter at Auburn, I finally took the vigorous PE. I'd already had fundamentals. I've had the recreational, and I just dreaded that vigorous PE. I chose probably the only one I could have any hope of doing well, and that was jogging. Well, guess what? I learned I enjoyed jogging. So I graduated and took up running, and I could do a 10K in about 44 minutes. And then that translated to swimming, which I know you're passionate about. And then that translated to weightlifting. And there was a time in my life that I was swimming, running, and lifting and was in really good shape. And it all started because I had to take a PE in college.
Yeah,
and recall your closet on Casa Loma in Dallas.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, Dave, it's great to be on this program with you. When we were down by the river eating fried chicken and teaching those Yankees how to tailgate, who'd ever thought we'd be on a sports podcast together?
Exactly. All these years later. Although, unfortunately, with the weather this week, we wouldn't be down. We'd be about 30 feet underwater. West Point, unfortunately, suffered severe flooding this week with the all the big floods in the Northeast. So, but basically, where we used to hang out on campus is still underwater right now.
Yeah.
Well, and we're talking about it. You could not graduate from Auburn without knowing how to swim. And why don't we do that anymore? Because someone that doesn't know how to swim is a danger, not only to themselves, but to everybody around them. I'll never forget doing a story on jump school at Fort Benning. I called it a series, Hunters Airborne, Hunters from the Sky. And the Black Hats, and you know this, Dave, unless you're a NAP, I don't know if you're airborne qualified or not. You probably are. I'm sure you are. Yeah. Okay. So you went to Benning for 3 weeks. That was one of the coolest things I ever did. I'll never forget. They would have a harness around me, and I'd stand by the door and I'd shoot, because no photographer of sound mind would ever do the stories that I liked to do. So I learned how to shoot, learned a lot of good stuff. And the Black Hats would stand up there and they said, look, if you're not scared when you walk up, jump up, hook up, shuffle to the door, jump right out and count to 4. If my main don't open wide, I got a reserve by my side. If my reserve should fail me too, look out ground, I'm a coming through. Tell my mom I done my best, bury me in a lean and rest. And but I'll never forget that instructor. They call him the Black Hats. And he said, if you're not scared, you're not thinking about being safe. And then there was people would be worried about a C-130 or a C-141 with prop blast. And so it was just, there's these, you got to do things that you got to get people. The best coaching advice I've ever been given was, look, you've got to learn to be comfortable getting out of your comfort zone. You're going to have to do a lot of things that you don't like. And Dave, sports, we see it all the time. And you know what I think's happening in the portal? I think it's fixing itself. There's a lot of people that wake up when it's raining and go back to sleep. I sit there I just go, I've got rain gear. That's what I bought it for. I'm going to get ahead. Monday's my favorite day of the week, Monday morning. I love Monday morning meetings. What's different about Monday? Because then those people say, well, I got to recover on Monday. And then Tuesday, well, I get a little bit of done. Then Wednesday, they're thinking about it's hump day, which I hate that term. It's the weekend coming up. You know what? The reason we're struggling is we're not forcing people in this country to get out of their comfort zone. I don't give a damn if you like it or not. I just know that in order to be successful in sports, the portal, you're starting to see kids now say the portal's for people who aren't ready. Kids are starting to take pride in, I'm ready for college. And you watch, after we go through a full cycle, and the portal started October 15th of 2018, you're going to see enough of these kids that turn their back on the school that believed in them at the beginning, bless you, and they're going to want a job or go back and do a little ring knocking for connections, and they're going to have a lot of doors slammed in their face. Stick it out. Isn't that the best advice we've ever heard? It means a lot.
I read something this week that was really illuminating for me, and it talked about the difference between stress and tension. And it said, yes, stress is unhealthy. Stress can be debilitating. Tension is a good thing. Tension, you are volunteering to put yourself through something hard. You're doing something hard and you're getting to the other side of it. If you continue to avoid tension and you stay in bed on a rainy day, then eventually, inevitably, you suffer stress, because the stress is, hey, I have a challenge in front of me. I can't address it. I'm helpless. And so you seek out tension and you stretch yourself, and then you never really feel stress, or if there is stress, you know how to manage it. And I read this, the difference between tension and stress, and it was really illuminating to me. And I think people and parents, to Maury's point on recess, we need to take that a lot more seriously instead of the BS that we're pretending to take seriously right now.
Well, let's just talk about what they've done. They've taken away recess. My wife has a master's in elementary education and a degree in psychology. Try watching a football game with her. She's a body language expert. I mean, it's unbelievable. But I know in 14 years of volunteer coaching, middle school, cross country, and track and field, kids don't get recess. But I think the coolest thing ever was when in 7th grade at the physical fitness test, 7th and 8th graders, they gave you 2 minutes to do as many chin-ups as you could do. And I think the strongest boy did 13. My daughter, Halle Bear Browne, did 34 in 2 minutes. And all three of my kids, and now Mallory, she's on the team, the one that went to Alabama. She's awesome. And even the granddaughter, they all work out. They all do this stuff. And when my daughter was 9 months old, 10 months old, say what you want, but we'd be at the zoo and I'd make her get out of the stroller and walk to start building those muscles. How fast can a wildebeest calf run after birth on the cesarean? 3 minutes. And if you ain't running within 3 minutes of birth, the lions and the cheetahs and the leopards, by the way, the jungle, lions don't live in the jungle. They live in the Serengeti or the savannah. And there are no tigers in Africa unless you go to a zoo. Just for the record, people always say that. That drives me. I'm a savant. My dad's listening right now. It's like a Richter scale, looking at the reading, going, "Boy, you got some company on there today." There goes Stedman Chile.
We are at the bottom of the hour on Savant Saturday. This is great.
No, it is. But Kevin Scarbinsky is going to be on here with us in just a minute. But I think it's critical when we look at all the narratives that are being written, and whoever wants to tackle this one, but this is the next topic. that NIL, there's just all these people out there with money wanting to throw it at unproven 17 and 18-year-old kids. I can tell you in my financial advisory practice, those people don't exist. Somebody that has a $25 million account with you, they're going to question the $75 IRA fee. What is this? So these people that think there's all these fools out there, where are they? And can I get in contact with them? I'm serious. No, they don't exist. I don't know anyone who likes this stuff.
This is an amateur take, just because. It's an amateur take, so I'm totally unqualified. But one thing, quitting becomes a habit, and giving, abandoning where you are and either quitting or going somewhere else, that becomes a habit. And just in my tiny little West Point circle, one of my best friends, his brother was at West Point and basically had to leave quit his last semester. And this is now 35, 36 years ago. One semester away from graduating from West Point. He never graduated from college. He couldn't muster up the whatever to get through one final semester somewhere else. I have the son of another very close friend who flunked out of West Point his senior year, at the first semester of his senior year. 5 years later, he has not graduated from college. And this is a kid that had a 3.5, 3.6 in high school, and had a good GPA at West Point until he had one bad semester. Problems with his girlfriend, just kind of went off the rails. But that, you extrapolate those two sort of anecdotal data points and to our society, and that's, to me, that's the biggest problem. And then on the flip side, and you look at the athletes. So a great example is Ozzie Newsome. Great athlete at Alabama. Fantastic. Had a great football career. As a player for the Browns. But no one remembers that. No one even remembers he played for Coach Bryant, unless you're from an Alabama fan or SEC fan. No one remembers that he played for Coach. But what we know about Ozzie Newsome is that he became arguably one of the greatest general managers in NFL history. He became a great businessman. Yeah. And I believe it's the tough life growing up in Leeton, Alabama, as he did. And then, his only way to college was to get a scholarship to play football. He got that for Coach Bryant. He stayed all 4 years. Had a good, not spectacular, a good NFL career, but he learned the business of football all through that. And he applied that, and he's, got more money than, whoever. It doesn't need to work now, but it's his life. I mean, it's how he lives. And it's, to me, that's a winner, versus a quitter.
And Rob, athletics is a great environment for these things and to teach persistence and that sort of stuff. But for people like me who couldn't compete athletically, there are other organizations like the Boy Scouts, one of your sponsors. And if a young boy and man will persist to the rank of Eagle, he really sets himself apart. And there's a lot about the Scouts and politics that I don't approve of, but it's still an excellent program teaching life skills and teaching persistence and organization and planning and all of that sort of stuff. So when I see a resume come across with an Eagle Scout, they come out of the stack and to the top.
We got
and Maury was an Eagle Scout, but he won't tell you that. You have to ask him.
Well, my dad was an Eagle Scout, bronze and silver palm. And then it was time to go to college. And he said, well, I don't think it would have been too cool to be a KA and a Boy Scout at the same time, working on my merit badges when he was studying architecture. But he did. But here's the thing. I think about the Boy Scouts. Connor Sag, one of our club members, him and his dad, Michael, Michael's a music savant. I'm going to get him on the show sometime. I've never seen anybody like him. We have the great debate. I say, who the hell is Oates? I mean, Daryl Hall, he goes, Oates is the genius behind Hall and Oates. But anyway, Connor's an Eagle Scout. One thing about that kid, he just graduated from Arkansas, is they can figure things out. We learned in the Scouts, hey, You get out there, it's raining, it's a Friday night, land between the lakes, Trip Monger and me, it was wet. Mr. Clay, our scoutmaster, said, we'll figure something out. We went and found some pallets and made a platform and raised us that far out of the rain. We slept well. To hell with everybody else. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Alabama with just one more chance here on this drive. Let's go down the field and talk to Jerry Duncan. Jerry, what's going on down there? I see Coach Bryant over there talking to Coach Dye, talking to Ken Donahue. What's happening? Was that Joe Kynes? Remember Joe Kynes coming off the field? He said, what do you think about Alabama's performance in the first half? Man, I think that was the resume killer right there. I just my favorite
back then is when ABC and Keith Jackson would show an Alabama game and there he is, Paul William Bryant, and they show Coach Bryant, and then like come on, do it. And all of a sudden, you see the smoke start coming out, and everything. The camera would pan away real quick.
Yeah. And the thing that was cool about, and a guy that I really want, a friend of mine knows him, but I'd love to get Keith Donovan on, who's now the ESPN college football historian, and he talks about back in the 1970s. He said we essentially had a television aristocracy of teams, and we know that the teams. And then in that second tier, you could be on 5 times in a 2-year period. It was Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Texas, Penn State, Southern Cal, Michigan, Ohio State, and then Auburn and Tennessee and Georgia right there. And it was special because, the 10-year war, Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler. And, these coaches were fierce competitors. But a friend of mine who was as knowledgeable about Alabama and constitutional law as anyone I've ever met in my life told me that at Coach Bryant's funeral, Woody Hayes had, they didn't pay coaches any money back then. He rode the bus down to Coach Bryant's funeral, which was, I believe, in Birmingham. And a lot of the Alabama people there spotted him. You can't miss him. He looked like Larry Bud Millman. And they saw him and they took him in and took care of him and they flew him back. Somebody flew him back on their plane. I mean, that's cool stuff about, and I think about it. And here comes Kevin Scarbinsky right now, the southpaw out of Pottsville, Pennsylvania. And I was just going to say, Kevin, welcome. We call it, Dave named it Savant Saturday. Maury Gaston in Birmingham, Dave Tompkins of the Low Country. He's from Birmingham. But you think about
I bring the idiot to Savant.
No, my dad's already told me
many of our readers.
and Scarbo knows, and we're going to get to that. But let me just say that one of the things about the coaches that came up, you talked about Coach Bryant. You think about Shug Jordan, and I read this great book, and his son Ralph Jr. is a friend of mine, and Maury's, and we've had him on the show several times, and he said, I don't believe Dad ever invoked his war record the entire time he coached. So, and again, and as a great writer, Kevin will tell you this, it's not war, it's a game, but there was because Coach Jordan had fought against Rommel in North Africa. He landed at Sicily. He fought at Utah or Omaha Beach was wounded with a frag of an 88 millimeter gun. 4 days later, wanders in to a field hospital, and they said, Captain, you've been wounded. And he said, well, I thought, he goes, what happened? He goes, well, I was an engineer, credit to the engineers. And he was in charge of the landing at the beach. And he said, I noticed some blood in my eye, but he said, well, why didn't you get help? He goes, well, I had a damn job to do. I had to get our guys up on that field so we can win this war. Not only that, so he goes back home, and he's back at Fort Lewis McChord in SeaTac out there in Seattle. They're decommissioning his unit. And Ralph tells this story that my mother, who had enough at that time, went out there to Seattle to come back home with her husband, my father. And they bought a brand new automobile, a Chrysler or an Edsel or something. Chrysler. And they asked for volunteers to go to Okinawa. And Shug Jordan said, I'll go. He went to Okinawa to finish the war down there. And he said, my mother had to drive that brand new automobile from Seattle all the way back. And they were living at the time, I believe, in Athens, Georgia. And he said, to the day she died, she never forgave the United States government ever for that, having to drive back. But do you think Shug Jordan or Coach Bryant, who was in the Navy in World War II, or ever bothered by pressure, Kevin? I mean, you got to be around those guys. Kevin, you have the luxury. And I used to listen to George Lapidus and Mike Fleming and different writers in Memphis growing up listening. On a Saturday morning like this morning, they would get up and drive to Tuscaloosa. Well, you did that. You're a young guy, and you got a long way to go. I will figure out this password thing today because the Birmingham, anything that you do, I'm subscribing to. But you've had that luxury of just driving to the coach's house, office, farm, and spending the time. You do a ton of listening, but you're able to give great accounts and descriptions. Talk about what that's like, and we're going to get that back in this country. I think we're pushing people to the point where they're going to say, you know what, we like it the old way a lot more than quick sound bites and, pushing back all the time.
Well, you pushed some buttons there, Rob, and good morning, everyone.
Yeah, I'm on a roll. Coffee here in my Braves cup.
You pushed some buttons there. I could go off on a rant about as a society, our lack of real connection, our lack of real conversation, our lack of, just real relationships. And I've been reading about this about social media and the generation of my sons who grew up with social media their entire lives.
Yeah.
And how rates of depression and loneliness and anxiety have just gone up tremendously. We're better connected in one way and less connected in another than we've ever been. And that applies to the journalism business as well. It is harder than ever to establish relationships, to have those one-on-one conversations with, major college football coaches who have become so successful, not any more successful necessarily. Nick Saban may be an exception, but not really any more successful than the generation of coaches that I grew up with watching and then working with when I first got in the business, but compensated so well that and having so many other avenues to communicate with their fan base that they don't have to develop those relationships. Now, the wise ones do and have, and the older school coaches do, but in many cases, they don't feel an obligation, I think, to try to get to know the people that are covering them. Now, in their defense, it's harder because there are more people in many cases. More beat writers show up to practice, which you can't watch, by the way. You can watch select periods at the beginning of practice. I had the privilege, although it didn't always feel like a privilege, in August and September in Auburn, Alabama, to watch entire practices just about every day from start to finish. And you could really see a team develop. You could see players develop. You could see relationships between players and coaches. You could see rough spots. I can tell you, I could tell stories. Some of the things I saw at practice, just some of them were so exciting. Some were horrifying.
Yeah.
I almost saw, you guys will remember Benji Rowland played nose guard for Wayne Hall, who was the defensive line coach, and Pat Dye at Auburn. And I saw him go nose to nose. Now, Benji was, he was a rawhide country boy from Georgia. I could see he was about, I want to say, Rob, 6'3", 295, and as tough an hombre as you'd want to run across. And I saw him go nose to nose with Wayne Hall, who was not 6'3" and 295 pounds, even when he played a linebacker. I think it was linebacker at Alabama for Bear Bryant.
Yeah.
And they were Benji was enraged. They went nose to nose, and Wayne Hall challenged him and said, "You want to hit me, don't you? Go ahead. You think you're tough? Go ahead and hit me." And I'm standing on the sideline praying, "Dear God, please do not let Benji Rowland hit Wayne Hall, because if he hits him, he's going to kill him. And this is going to be a story I don't want to have to write." And, and Benji Rowland in that moment found more self-control than I think I may have ever witnessed, and did not hit Wayne Hall, did not put his hands on Wayne Hall. His face was 12 shades of red. He was about at the limit of his blood pressure before veins started exploding. But Benji turned away, and but they had a relationship. Wayne could push Benji to the breaking point, and Benji wouldn't break. Yeah, he knew that because they knew each other, and they had a relationship. The same thing and again, I could go in Wayne Hall's office and talk to him. I got an education, guys, in Southern football. As I think most people know, I didn't grow up in Alabama, in the South. I grew up in Pennsylvania, graduated high school there, moved south with my family after high school. So when I started covering Auburn and Pat Dye in 1985, I didn't know Southern football. I knew tearaway jerseys. I used to love to watch games from Legion Field and the tearaway jerseys when I was growing up as a teenager. But I got an education in Southern football from Pat Dye and Wayne Hall and Joe Witt and who am I thinking? Oh, Larry Blakeney, Pat Sullivan, you name it.
Reggie Herring.
Those players, Reggie Herring, holy cow.
Wasn't he Captain Cronauer from The Longest Yard?
He could have been. If he'd gone.
I ate lunch a few times in Sewell Hall with that guy.
Yeah. But you got to know those guys, and it's just, and they took, to their credit, they took the time, they welcomed you in. They didn't always agree with you, and they would let you know it if they didn't. But you could work out your differences, and you could develop relationships. And that is one of the things that's missing, not just in the sports journalism world, but I think in our society in general.
Yeah. And off the record and on the record. I mean, I have conversations with friends like you do. And I mean, I remember as a TV reporter, most of the stuff at Fort Benning, the guys that I talked with, they would say, "Is that camera off?" I go, "Yeah." I go, "You have to respect that." And you have to. I knew you were from Pennsylvania. I mean, I was in school when you were covering Auburn, but I told you, I think about the great writers, and as Charles Hollis said, it's a lot of hotel rooms and 2, 3, 4 nights a week or whatever. But man, the stories that you all can tell, and we need that about these players. Benji Rowland was 6'3", 295 out of Eastman, Georgia, if I remember correctly. You had Stacy Searles out of Tryon, Georgia. And, it's just amazing to me when you can read about a practice. Tommy Tuberville on the show, my friend Brock Kreitz played linebacker at Ole Miss, 93 through 97. Brewer signed him out of Naperville, Illinois. And Brock is famous for two things. In 94, he played for Sockless Joe Lee Dunn in 94, in Tuberville 95, 6, and 7. In 1996, Ole Miss had 46 players on scholarship. They'd been in some probation. They went to Athens. They've got the Georgia game won. They've got Georgia backed up on their own goal line. And Walker Jones, linebacker out of Jackson, Mississippi, Jackson Prep, I believe. Brock Kreitz, Naperville, Illinois, are the linebackers. They're all on the line of scrimmage. The quarterback, Mike Bobo, throws a pop pass over the top to a pretty good athlete, a guy named Hines Ward, and he's gone. They're going to lose the game. Tuberville's signature win. Brock and Walker ran him down in the open field. Tommy Tuberville said on the show before he became a senator, he said, "I'm going to devote an entire chapter to my book about that." And Brock was on the show with me last week. and he helped coach football with his sons at Christian Brothers High School. Awesome guy. He's famous for that. But he's also famous for introducing one of the great terms for about a cold beer. He said, no, up in Naperville, Illinois, it's a road soda. So just might put that in there for a little bit of trivia. But running down Hines Ward in the open field, those stories, I mean, and a whole chapter, just like you said, going to practice and just being out there, adjectives and descriptive adjectives. English, I mean, I still, because of getting popped on the hand with the knuckles by a teacher or Brother John Michael, who was 8 feet tall, I remember, that taught us typing. Don't look at the keys, you boob. That was the first warning you got, like a rattlesnake, coiling up. The second one was, don't look at the keys, you jackass. The third time, he grabbed you by the hair in the back of your neck, you're airborne. And you did not look at the keys. But I still indent 5 spaces to the right. I still can hear Brother John, 8 foot tall, 400 pounds. But journalism, and Maury knows this, and Dave knows this. Dave's a West Point grad. Maury, Auburn grad. Kevin, I still see guys, there's grammatical errors. Somebody told me one time about podcasts. They said, I like the way y'all do it, Rob, because most of them are giant run-on sentences. Do you still hold yourself, Kevin, to the standard? Hell, you got a master's or a PhD from Florida. You didn't work that hard to put out, some sloppy stuff, did you?
No, well, don't decorate me beyond my accomplishment there, Rob. I actually didn't finish my master's degree. I don't want to be accused of going the George O'Leary route and embellishing my resume all these years later.
You won the Nobel Prize too, didn't you? Is that what
in Alabama?
I did go to the University of Florida. I got my undergrad degree from Troy in business.
Yeah.
I needed to learn a little something about journalism beyond what I learned in that little tiny dungeon of an office at the Troy Tropolitan, the student newspaper. So I went to Florida to grad school. I passed all the courses. I did an internship. I was a student teacher. And the one thing I didn't do, because the Birmingham News at the end of my internship offered me a full-time job, which was my goal in going to graduate school in the first place, I did not do the thesis. And to this day, I kind of regret it, because it would be nice to say I have a master's in journalism from the University of Florida. And my mother, hope she's resting in peace. She always said, oh, why didn't, she was always disappointed in me that I didn't finish the master's degree, but I did get a very good education. And a gentleman named David Sturt at the University of Florida, he was a professor. He started Gator Bait, I believe, the newspaper, when it was a little tabloid newspaper. And David taught a course in sports reporting. And I took that course, and that really kind of set me on the path that I shortly thereafter took into my career. But that's one thing, I was talking with, and it's great. I love that my sons are 18 and 20, so we can have real conversations. And my younger son, who's about to start college next month, said, we were talking about that. And, there are the editor class of the journalism business has all but vanished. And so stories go directly from writer to reader. You write it, you put a headline on it, you choose a picture, you write a cut line for the picture, you push a button, and boom, it goes off to however many readers. There's no editing. And many writers are not good editors.
Yeah, Kevin, hold that thought.
You read that every day online.
Yeah, and you just nailed it. They're just going. They're not passing through the normal filters. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk a couple of minutes with my friend Eddie Murphey, who has put together. You're going to track and field, which I love. This has become one of not just the biggest events in America, but in the world. We're going to be right back after this quick break. All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Let me say real quick, we're going to bring Eddie Murphey in here out of Memphis with us. I've known Eddie since kindergarten, but let me say something about some of the new brands. One of our great sponsors, Hewlett & Dunn, boot and clothing company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. They're bringing in Pendleton, Schaefer Outdoors, Danner, Vask, Light Boots, Hire Boots. A little bit of trivia on Savant Saturday. Hire invented the cowboy boot. That just came in from, I think Festus from Gunsmoke would dispute that. God dang, it was Matthew that did it. God dang. And then Doc would call him an idiot. But let's do this real quick, Kevin. I want to get back on this discussion about journalism, but I want to go to Eddie Murphey. Eddie's father, and I knew him, unbelievable, ran every day, 8 days a week, Eddie, would you say? He won the SEC mile at Tennessee and was roommates and real close friends with Johnny Majors. But I love track and field. I've coached it as a volunteer for years, and I tell every kid I've ever coached and myself and my own kids, it's your insurance policy for every sport you play. And around the world, Harvey Glantz told me this one time. He said, in America, he goes, I love Auburn. I'm an Auburn man. He was going to coach Alabama in track. He said, but when you go around the world, track and field, guys, it's like Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, and Robert Plant. It's that big a deal. So, Eddie, let's talk about the Ed Murphy Track and Field Classic in Memphis. And this is Kevin Scarbinsky, Birmingham lead, Dave Tompkins, the Low Country over in South Carolina, Maury Gaston in Birmingham. And welcome and thanks for taking time to join us. And we'll get you back on again later this week to talk more about it coming up.
Sounds great. Good morning, guys, and appreciate you having me on this morning. A lot of great things happening here in Memphis around the Ed Murphy Classic, and basically just a quick story on my dad was he was a big runner back in the 50s, won the SEC mile 3 years in a row, was captain University of Tennessee's first SEC cross country championship in 1957, went from Marine Corps, was actually in the same Marine Corps with Bill Cosby and won the Marine Corps mile up at Quantico. He became an real avid runner, forever. And, the cool thing about it when I grew up, Rob, was he basically instilled trying to promote track and field for the University of Tennessee athlete. And Coach Rowe in 1965 asked him to start an award for the most outstanding track athlete at the University of Tennessee, and they named it the Ed Murphy Award. And so since 1965, he's given the award. Dad always used to like to call it, he said, it's older than the Super Bowl. And there's a lot of names that have won this award. Willie Gault, Aries Merritt, just on and on. Justin Gatlin, Christian Coleman, the last two guys to beat Usain Bolt, actually won Dad's award. And, so it instilled in me to, when he passed away in 2014, to continue the Ed Murphy Award. And since then, we've done it and given the award out. The first year we ever gave it to was Christian Coleman, the last guy Dad met. And he told him, he said, son, I want you to work real hard and I want you to win my award. Well, he not only won the award, but he's actually coming to our event this year, which is really big news for us. 2017, Mike Cody and some Memphis prominent Memphians called me up on the phone and said, hey, Murph, we want to honor your dad and want to have lunch with us and talk about what we can do to bring some Olympians in to Memphis to break the 4-minute barrier, which has never been done in Memphis or Shelby County. So we brought in 7 Olympians. They had a great time. I met them as fate would have it, there was about 200 kids around a Hoka meet in Memphis. 4 of the guys broke the 4-minute barrier. The 5th guy ran a 4:00.01. And it was an amazing event. And the thing that blew me away, guys, was what I found was that the next morning I was at the airport and I ran into Erica Valle and Craig Ingalls, 2 Olympians, and they said, hey, Eddie, would you put on another race in Memphis? We had a great time, and we're actually heading over to Ireland, and we've got to go to Brussels, Lausanne, and we need more races in America for American athletes. And so here we are 7 years later, and literally last year we finished 27th in the world and 4th in the United States as the World Athletic Organization basically puts everything together and comes up with the rankings. And right now, this race this year is really taken off. We've got 360 athletes coming to Memphis to compete. We've got 80 of them are Olympians, 12 of them are medalists from 40 different countries. So this thing has just really exploded on the scene. It's amazing.
tell them last year where you had Kevin and guys, you got to love where they had the pole vault event. That was maybe the coolest thing. It went viral on social media. It was damn near an athletic pandemic.
Yeah, you know how it works, Rob, is it's, we're all in the promotion business and we're trying to figure this out. And, what we found is that the professional athlete in America really doesn't get the exposure it does in Europe. And so, all 400 people that came to our meet at the University of Memphis last year, which we finished, 27th in the world, it's just amazing that it's hard to get people to go to the stands to see these great athletes. And so what we decided a couple of years ago was, well, if they're not going to come to us, let's take it to the people. And so we were scratching our heads. We were going to do it at this cool restaurant bar outside bar called the Rail Garden. They actually turned us down at the last minute. And I was talking to some guys at Memphis Tourism. I was like, man, we have to get exposure here. I said, do you think we put this thing on at Beale Street? And they were like, let's do it. So Max Paquette, who's our meet director, we put our heads together, got together with the guys on Beale Street Association. And turns out the guy at Alfred's went to CBHS, was a pole vaulter. And so we put the pole vault on Beale Street, and it was an amazing success. I mean, just went viral immediately. And, the cool thing about it, guys, is how we learn this. We all learn from people that have mentor you or whoever in your business. And there were some guys last year that we had our meet, and we learned from that in Zurich. We got to go to Zurich, where the Diamond League Finals is. And if you go to Zurich, it's a $14 million event. And they have the downtown by their opera house. They have the pole vault. They have the high jump, the shot put, and they actually put a track down for the 3,000 meter. And they have kids races all day long. So really, what we're doing is just learning from other places.
That's great. That's awesome.
And just bringing it to America.
That's awesome.
Well, Eddie, look here. I mean, and I'm going to have you back on later in the week. I want to get more in depth. But before we let you go, first off, thank you for doing this. I mean, we want to spend money in a lot of places. Let's put tracks in every neighborhood. I mean, and you said something to me last night, guys. You're not going to believe this. And they go where the kids are in Memphis. You got a 9-year-old kid, and what you just found him. He just showed up at one of your events. What was his time in the 200?
It was 21 something, and it was pretty amazing.
Wow.
Well, I think that's right. I got to go back on that, Rob. We got to talk
21-7, 21-7.
I think that's something like that. But here's the main story in this, guys, is that we're the only track meet in America that we make no money on this. So this is something where either the money goes to the athlete, the pro athlete, or our inner city kids. And Memphis, like a lot of southern cities, we have a problem with gangs and things like that. And so this is an opportunity for us to go into the inner city and put on. We couldn't get any kids, so to come to our meets and basically get exposure to them. And the other 501c3s, we were just having trouble. So what we did was we formed the Murphey Track Club last winter, and we said, okay, well let's go to the kids. So now 3 days a week, we're at Raleigh Egypt High School and at Southwind High School every day this summer for 2 hours, hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, 3 days a week. And now they're coming to our meets to run because it's Murphy, the Ed Murphy Classic. It's kind of blowing up, guys, so quickly. We've got all these races all day long for kids, and then the pros. And we actually run the 100 meters. We have the 10 race for the kids in the morning, and then that night when we're going to be on Peacock this year. We're moving from ESPN to Peacock. The kids run the 100-meter finals in the middle of the pro meet, which is really cool. Just giving our kids some exposure, lifting our kids' exposure. The damnest thing, guys, when we started this thing, and I found out there was no track meets, we paid Olympians to come in this third year of our meet $600 to win our race. $600. And now we're at $3,000, and that's nowhere near what we need to be to lift our American athlete. It's amazing how in depth it is, and there's so many issues that we can fix pretty easily.
Yeah,
just by caring and doing the right thing.
Yeah, think about the number, and I remember Bo Jackson saying, if it wasn't for sports, I don't know where I'd be. But Eddie, God bless you, man, for doing this. And I'm going to bring you back on Thursday or Friday of this week. We'll be up at Media Days. Want to be talking about this a lot. Do us a favor, please. Let people know how they can reach out, sponsor, support, attend, whatever you need to do. You and I are both in sales. Too much is never enough.
Yes, no question. Listen, you can buy tickets. Go to our website, edmurphyclassic.com. Follow us on Instagram. all the different things, social media platforms we're out there. It's a can't miss this year, guys. With the Olympics being in Paris next year, it's going to be difficult to bring the athletes that we have this year. But 2028, when we're in LA, America's going to have all the opportunity in the world. And Sebastian Coe said it 4 years ago, which we got a head start here, was we need to lift the profile of track and field in America. That's why they brought the Olympic trials here, all the different things that we're doing, the Prefontaine. It's some really cool things going on in track and field. We're just happy to be a part of it and do our part.
Eddie, I've known you since kindergarten. You were born to do this. That image of your dad being over at the U Club after a run down Central with Phil Taylor, it's right. Indelibly in my mind. The road trips to Knoxville, and I've remarried. My wife is Evolve for Life, and cousin Mark has the biggest tailgate up there. I'm glad you're doing this. I'm going to be there. In fact, if we can do the show live from there Saturday, I'd like for you to do the play-by-play, because I absolutely love track and field, and it is, look at the SEC. But thanks so much for being on here with us, and I'll talk to you this week.
You better believe it. Thanks, guys. Nice to meet all y'all.
Thank you.
All right. Eddie Murphey, man, I'm going to tell you, I love the fact that we've got the sports coming on across the board. You know, you name it, and all. Track and field, you look at the guy, we say, why can't we find a person like a Bo Jackson or a Herschel Walker or whatever? I mean, all of y'all know this. John Hartwell's on with us, AD from ULM. It's because, we had 3 guys come out. 1980 Herschel Walker, track and field guy. Bo Jackson, Marcus Dupree. Marcus Dupree, I don't know if he was a track and field guy, but he probably was. But John Hartwell's on with us. We all grew up doing track and field. That was part of what we did. And now, it cost about $800,000 to put a track in, guys. You look around. John, you're an athletic director at University of Louisiana Monroe. Track and field, it's not that expensive, but putting the track in is. But we were talking with Eddie Murphy about the Ed Murphy Track and Field Classic in Memphis. It's bringing people from all over the world. And look, we all love the Olympics, but when you go global, track and field, swimming, tennis, those are way more well-known than American NBA or NFL players. John.
Yeah, no question. Good morning, guys. Great to be with y'all. Dave, I'm just glad to see your calendar was the same as mine. It says Saturday. I got a T-shirt on. Everybody else got their college shirt. Dave and Eddie, I appreciate you guys.
I might be seeing you in a few Saturdays. My Army team is
stayed on. I need the contact information for that 9-year-old that runs sub 22 200 meters, because I'll go ahead and tell you right now, at ULM we will give him a dual sports scholarship. We'll go football, track and field. So, but yeah, you're exactly right. A lasting image, and I was a high jumper. I was not a very good one, but a high jumper in middle school and early high school in Mobile, and I will never forget Bo Jackson coming to Mobile, UMS Wright High School, and coming to it. Now I was an 8th grader and he was a senior in high school, but I had never seen such a large man in a track and field outfit. And to see him get on the blocks to run 100 meters, you talk about intimidating. That was pretty damn intimidating.
I bet it was, man. John, that Buddy Martin, GatorbaitMedia.com. Former sports editor, New York Daily News, Denver Post, St. Petersburg Times, now GatorbaitMedia.com. Kevin, tell Buddy who you learned sports writing from. I did not know this because, Buddy's GatorbaitMedia.com.
Yeah. Good morning, Buddy.
Good morning.
It's nice to see you. Of course, David Sturt. And
sure.
When I was in graduate school at Florida back in, it was so long ago, it was Charlie Pell's last year as the football coach.
Oh, wow.
To put it in perspective. But that year.
Long before the ball coach.
Yeah. David taught a sports reporting class in the School of Journalism at the University of Florida. And it was fairly new at the time. So I was one of his original students. And I learned so much from that class. And the great thing about David was he made us do what sports journalists do. We went to Jacksonville, covered a USFL game, We had to cover every possible sport on the Florida campus. I took it in spring semester, and there's an awful lot going on in Gainesville in the spring semester. So you had to get out and you had to act like a journalist. You had to interview people. You had to write stories. You had to write game stories and feature stories. And it made an indelible impression on me and really kind of set me on the path to become a sports journalist. So Dave is a friend to this day, and I've always been grateful for him setting me on this path.
Well, good morning to you, Kevin. Good morning, Maury and Dave and John. I don't think I've met John before. And, of course, Rob. Yeah, David was a founder of Gator Bait 47 or 48 years ago. It's gone through several phases. And when I bought it, it was one of its last gasp, being the patron saint of lost causes, which I am. I decided to keep it alive a little while. We managed to do that for the last 5 years. It's a mom and pop operation. I'm really proud of the work we're doing right now, especially with two young reporters. And of course, you guys know Franz Beard and our whole team, and latest star, Allie Peak Wilbur, who is just terrific, man. I mean, she is fantastic. So she does the show. So yeah, that was some good times there. And by the way, track and field, I was going to go out for track and field, but I couldn't decide if I was going to go out for track or field. I didn't know which one. So.
Well, bottom line, we had Allie Peak Wilbur on the show a couple of days ago. And, guys, her husband played on the 06 national championship team with Urban Meyer. Her brother played on the 08 national championship team. Her father played with Wilbur Marshall in the early 80s. Her grandfather played for the Gators. And
going way, way, way back, my mom dated Charlie Pell. And my dad used to always say, "Why didn't Charlie warn me?" And and John, I might be headed your way in a few weeks. My Army team takes on you guys to kick off the season.
Yeah, opener on September 2nd. So our defensive coordinator, Vic Koenig, I was down walking to visiting with some folks down in the football offices yesterday. Our defensive staff is busy scheming how to stop that triple option, although with some coaching change there, they've gone to some even a little different variation to the triple option. So we're
it's a new offense this year.
Yeah, y'all hold those thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. It's Tight Break Saturday. Mildred got the sands through the hourglass here. We're going to come back. We got two more segments, a lot to talk about with a great round table on this Saturday. Going to get into some serious college football savant stuff right after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
We're going to start doing some rapid fire stuff here. And I want to start, Kevin, you talked about the journalism, how to write sports stories. John, you're as an athletic director. You see it from your position. Buddy, as a sports editor. Dave, Maury, and me, advice aggregators, quarterbacks. But I'm going to start, Kevin. If you could wave the magic wand and go to John Hartwell, who's the AD at ULM, or any AD in America, what would you say to him about, can you do something to help us with accessibility to the coaches? I mean, what would be a plan? Because I think the more you do that, and I tell you one thing, Butch Thompson's on this show damn near every week from mid-January through late June. He is so accessible. If you say, hey, I got somebody coming down, man, he'll meet them. He'll make breakfast for them. I mean, what's wrong with that? Kevin, I want your thoughts, and then throw it to John and then Buddy.
Well, John, you're lucky. Your football coach understands, and I've known Terry for a long time. I had the good fortune to get to know him when he was coaching at Samford, and then of course at Auburn, and did some incredible things there. And we've stayed in touch through the years. It's one of the things I think it's lost is an off-season event where you invite members of the media, your coaching staff. We're talking football specifically, and it's off the record. It is relaxed. It is informal. You know, maybe you play golf, maybe you go hunting, or not hunting, but maybe you go fishing. Maybe you just sit around a lodge and cook out and just have a relaxed get together where you just get to know each other better and you spend a little time and encourage. One thing that's also becoming a dinosaur is one-on-one interviews with athletes. And that I think is unfortunate. I understand it's difficult. I understand the demands on their time. But I can remember driving around Auburn with Jeff Berger in his, as he called it, his big ass pickup truck. And which is unheard of today to be able to do something like that, unless maybe you work for ESPN. But we spent an afternoon for a feature story I was doing, and we just drove around town and told stories. And he told me about himself and growing up in Cedartown, and you just get. And then this was prior to, and then Jeff got in. Maury, you of course remember well. Jeff got into a number of incidents, one off season, But having known him, having talked to his parents for the story, it gave me a different perspective on him than if it was someone who I only knew by name, who I only saw on Saturdays, or maybe got a chance to talk to at a press conference for 5 minutes on a Monday or after a game. So creating more one-on-one opportunities to talk with student athletes, but also maybe a little off-season interaction between the coaching staff and local members of the media, I think is very helpful.
Love that.
Yeah, I think Kevin's spot on there. And you know, I've always been a big believer. What we do is not rocket science. We're in a relationship business, and that relationship goes so many directions. You know, athletic directors, coaches, student athletes, donors, but the media is a big part of that. And, you know, quite frankly, I've got some colleagues who are so standoffish and so damn scared of the media. And the reason that is because they haven't developed relationships with them. I mean, it's about, you know, when you develop those relationships, then through the access, you have some transparency, you build trust, you know, hey, when you go in cold to somebody and say, hey, this is an off the record statement, you know, that's not usually going to go over well. But if it's guys you've built relationships with and say, hey, I'm gonna give you this, don't attribute this to me, and it's a two-way street. And I think that's so important. You know, I've been fortunate enough, you know, through the years with guys, whether it's Brett McMurphy or Bruce Feldman or guys like that. I mean, they'll call me, whether it's stuff directly involving us or other places, and I've got relationships where, you know, they know if I say, hey, I can't go there, guys, they back off and understand. And I just think developing those relationships and like Kevin said, the accessibility, because you would rather have a story done where as many of the facts, now there are some things, you know, confidentiality, you know, FERPA, some things that you can't give out all the information, but if the story is going to be out there one way or the other, and you want to give as many of the facts as you can so that you don't leave gaps for interpretation, because usually that's where the misunderstanding happens, and I think that's so important.
Buddy,
and a case study of how not to do it is Northwestern.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
On a whole bunch of fronts, Gavin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Buddy, I want your thoughts on what they both just said. And because that's an athletic director saying that, boy, that's refreshing to hear.
Yeah, well, you use some key words there. I mean, trust is a big one, but how do you earn that? And unfortunately, I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure the coaches want to know all the people that call themselves media, because I don't think we can define it. I think that's the first step. What is the media? Who is the media? Do they show up? Are they trustworthy? I mean, look, they have a right to be there and write what they want to do, all right? Don't try to suppress that. But You share with people you can trust. The late Ray Perkins, for all the people who didn't like him and, whatever, I knew Ray pretty well and knew him in New York. And we talked about that. And I said, Ray, let me tell you something. Don't treat us all the same. Some of us have served our time. We're trustworthy. Not that we're not going to write things bad when they're bad, but the fact is we're not the same. Now, you can't take a guy who's got 10 followers on Twitter and treat him like he's the sports editor of the whatever papers there are anymore, Birmingham News, whatever. It's different. And I don't mean to create elitism, but when you talk about media, define who you're talking about. And trust is such a key element. Speaking of journalism, and speaking of trust, and speaking of people, there's a very sad chapter in journalism, sports journalism this past week, when the New York Times, and don't think about the politics, think about the sports and the resources, actually folded their sports page.
That was so sad.
The New York Times. God. Listen, when I was in New York at the Daily News, Neil Amder was a good friend of mine. We came up together in high school football and whatever, covering high school football. He became sports editor of the Times. I had been sports editor of the News. What a great day that was for journalism. Now it's no more. It's gone kaput. What does that mean? I don't know. I don't know what's happened to it, but I know this. There needs to be a rebuilding of the relationships. And I believe you said, John, it's about relationships. You got to want to have a relationship. And to have a relationship, you have to have a little bit of trustworthiness. Even if you don't like each other or disagree, you can still have a relationship. And college football, unfortunately, the feeling for those who work in media stiffs, and I'm kind of out of it now a little bit, but I still write and cover it, is that really college football doesn't give a damn about the media. They don't care about them. Sometimes they wish they weren't even there. So there's a lot of work to be done. And if you're taking your paycheck from ESPN, which most people are these days, and getting their money from television, what's there to be loyal to except past relationships? They just don't exist anymore. And I'm sure Kevin can back that up.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, I think, you make so many key points there, buddy. And that's why I've always pushed back against the term media. Yeah. Because even though it was, back in the day, it was easier to define. But even in those days, all members of the media were not and are not created equal. And that's why I think, and this is what's lost, I think, among readers. I think we have, while they have access to more information from more sources than ever before, I think in many cases they're less discerning than ever before. And the media said this, or the media thinks this, or the media, and every time I hear that, I throw up a stop sign and push back and say, look, don't lump me in with fill in the blank who said something outrageous on Twitter to get attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't lump me in with that individual. Judge me on what I do and the work that I produce. So, but you're right. The rise of television, the prominence of television, the dollars generated by television has given television a prominence in the media world, and it has pushed down the print media, whether it's online or in actual print.
Oh, the written word, period.
The written word, exactly. And so that's a problem for old school journalists like you, buddy. And I put myself in that category. The idea that they can put out their own stuff. I mean, Florida has two, am I right about this, buddy? Two former, I know Chris Harry's, I've known Chris a long time, excellent journalist. They have their own journalism staff, if you will, putting out stories, feature stories.
And both very good. Stories. Scott, they're both very good journalists.
Yeah.
And why Scott, they need us?
Scott Carter and Chris Harry. So they can do it themselves. Yeah. So they're cutting out the middleman in many ways. And that's happening in a lot of places.
Yeah. John, I know you just got a few minutes.
I'm not in the media, but I'm going to give an amateur opinion. First off, I agree on New York Times. That is so sad. When I was a freshman at West Point, my roommate was the nephew of Joe D'Urso, who was a famous.
Joe D'Urso. I'm glad you brought him up today.
Yeah, he was, and I basically Tom D'Urso, my roommate and buddy, introduced me to Joe, and I would read his column pretty much every day, and that really ignited in me the love of writing, because he was such a good writer, and I was able to marry writing with sports. My long, love all my life. And that's, that there's not going to be a Joe Durso Jr., if you will, out, writing from the New York Times is so sad. And I think with media, I don't think social media is a bad, it's not evil in its own way or whatever. It's just how social media is used. And I'll use an example for Maury. Maury got a wonderful distinction this summer with Sigma Nu. And it's so easy to, for people to resent and to have envy and hate, and to say, let's just use a hypothetical example. And I'm jealous of Maury, for what he got at Sigma Nu, so I wanted to hate on him. I can go on social media and post all these photos and look, this guy got his award at his distinction at Sigma Nu because he's some, political back office guy, and here he is at, being political and stuff. Well, the reason why Maury got his distinction, his award, 45 years. I believe you started you were rushed in Sigma Nu in 1978, if I'm doing my math correctly. Yeah. So that's 45 years of Maury putting in, I'm guessing, on a minimum of 10 hours a week of service to to Sigma Nu.
That's conservative.
Probably like 40 hours a week, knowing Maury. And it's so easy now with social media for someone to paint a completely inaccurate picture of, why Maury is now the chairman, basically runs Sigma Nu. He earned it. 45 years of service, he earned it. But it's easy to take that down, and that's what's, back when it was print media, you couldn't do that. I don't know. That's just an amateur going on a rant. But there you have it.
You're right. And
key point real fast, if I may, because at my age you forget it if I don't say it now. So Joe Durso, I wrote down his name today when I wrote down the New York Times for notes today, because do you realize without Joe Durso, Steve Spurrier would never have won the Heisman Trophy, because he happened to be there that day against Auburn when Steve kicked that field goal to win it, which won him the Heisman. And back in those days, we didn't have games on TV. No. We had one. I mean, I think Steve played on TV one time.
Buddy, I think I've told you that was my first Auburn road trip.
I
was 7 years old.
Yeah, and Joe Durso was there and wrote about it, and that is why Spurrier won the Heisman. So Joe Durso was important to a lot of people, especially Gator fans, especially Steve Spurrier.
Yeah, John Hartwell, I know you've got limited time this morning before you go, but I want you to know something too about Terry Bowden. I'm just going to say this. In 1993, a friend of mine was down on the practice field. Mid-August, the NCAA lowered the boom on Auburn. It was a 2-year penalty, no bowls, 1 year, no TV. And a friend of mine was there with Mark Murphey. It was Mark Green inside the Auburn Tigers. Kevin, you were there. The way they handled that, Auburn could have sunk into an abyss of hell. Alabama just coming off of a national championship. They're 74th in their school's history. Auburn could have gone into the abyss of irrelevance. And he found excuses to win. 21-1 over the next 2 years. Hell, I named one of my retrievers after him, Bowden. He thought I was crazy. Bowden was maybe the best hunting dog I've ever had. But think about that, what people can do. But John, you went to the Citadel, and you're an accountant. And not only are you tough, but you're smart. But Buddy and Kevin and Maury and Dave, what y'all just said, God, it's we need to write a book about this stuff. But John, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm swatting mosquitoes. Sorry about that.
And I think everybody's kind of touched on this. Yeah. The definition of media has changed so much, and now media can be defined. If you've got this, or you've got a keyboard, and you fire something out there on social media, there's no editing of that. There's no, it's free game, and there's a fraction of what goes out there on social media that's the truth, and everybody's an expert. The timing of this is great. So you've got SEC media days this week. We've got Sun Belt Conference media days next week in New Orleans. And so, you will have, back to Buddy's point, you will have credentialed, well-established media there. But you will also have, and pardon this term, but it's true, the lunatic fringe there, the hanger owners that may or may not have a credential, but boy, if they're hanging out in the lobby and they hear something third hand, man, that's the gospel. They are firing that out there on social media, and there's nobody to monitor that. And that, what makes me sad about that is guys like Kevin and Buddy and so many people out there who have earned their stripes and gained the positive reputation. These lunatic fringe folks do nothing but dilute, what's out there. And I think it's a shame.
Hey, Rob, I got an idea for our program here. Let's start calling it the press. Okay. That's what it used to be called, the press.
Yeah.
Let's drop the term media and call it the press. All right.
Now,
Amen,
I think that's a great term, because I think about what John just said about you saying whatever you want. I can tell you in my other career as a financial advisor, one word: compliance.
Compliance.
And
Exactly.
I've always had great working relationships with our compliance officers, compliance directors. But you better, by God, you recommend a stock, you better back it up. You make any kind of a recommendation on social media, you better back it up. And I like that. The press, a press conference, a press briefing. I can tell you this, and Buddy and Kevin,
credential.
Yeah, because it used to be, I know in Memphis, the commercial appeal, I think the press, they did not allow, or they were discouraged their writers from being on radio shows. And then when they started coming on, was kind of toward the end of the newspaper. It was terrible. We missed so much great insight. But I remember Mike Fleming and George Lapidus and Bobby Hall. We'll be right back with more after this quick break. Look at this picture here, guys. This is Neyland Stadium back before they finished the expansion. This was autographed and signed by former Tennessee coach Johnny Majors to my wife Audrey's dad. And you think about the relationships that people have. Eddie Murphey, I've known Eddie, like I said, since kindergarten, and when he gets on to something, he's like me. He's OCD and ADD. That's why he's in sales. I mean, that's the way we are. But I love what Kevin and Buddy and John, Maury, Dave, you hear something said in the lobby. If I took everything that I hear when I have people come up here to the hunting camp and we're having a few cocktails or wine, and they've been in coaching, or none of that ever is allowed to be repeated. And we everybody knows that. You have to respect that. And I guarantee you, Buddy Martin, you got to be around. You are, and Kevin, it's so critical what you do that you don't give up your ground. I mean, I love that Tom Petty song, "We Won't Back Down," the Gators, but Allie Peak, Wilbur talked about that the other day. You can't give in to these people, like John said, that are just taking anything out there and throwing it against the wall and hoping it sticks. If I heard John having a private conversation with somebody and ran with that, you could destroy somebody's life. You need to think about that. Y'all are exact. Dave, you know this. Maury, you know this in business. Envy and jealousy is what's behind most of it.
Can I just jump in there and say one thing about Allie Peak? All right, I love her to death. What I'm so proud of is that Allie, against all these other big box companies like On 3 and 247, when it came time to get this major commitment, this offensive lineman, Florida, Fletcher Westfall, out of a big get before. The parents of Fletcher called Allie and said, "Would you like to have him on for his first interview?" Why? Because she's such a honest, forthcoming, hardworking woman who's got 2 sets of twins, does her podcast, does her homework, whatever. They picked her to do this. And I say, no, that's the old school way. John, I think you were talking about relationships. She had built a relationship over all these other companies that the dad wanted his son to announce it on Allie's show. I love that about Allie, and I wish we went more toward relationships. Let people earn it let them show themselves in their colors and be who they are. I love Allie P. Wilbur, and I'm proud of her.
Yeah, and let me pile on there, buddy, or add to that and fact check me on this one. There's been I know a lot of Florida fans have been upset with On3 and their recruiting rankings, suggesting that Florida players get bumped down while players from another school in the SEC East that may have won the last 2 national championships get bumped up because they committed to Georgia. And I saw a lot of complaints on social media from Florida fans about the person from On3 who does their rankings. Allie went, if I saw this right, she went and talked to that person.
That's right.
She allowed that individual to talk about how he does the rankings. So she didn't just comment on it. She went to the source.
Exactly. That's called journalism, right? That's called
journalism. To talk about it.
Yeah, exactly right. Great point. And she told me, I watched the interview. Was it Terry Sanders? I forgot who it was. And I learned from her.
Powers, wasn't it? His last name was Powers.
Yeah, I got remember the guy's name. But anyway, the interview was on, and what I loved about it was I learned some things about it by listening to her interview. I did not know that the ranking of star rankings was designed for the NFL guys. It wasn't even designed for college football. They really set it up so they could assess players for a future NFL. So, yeah, when you don't know, go ask, and that's what she did.
Yeah, I heard the best bit of advice for journalism. Someone was saying about a player was injured. If he was injured, and it was like, well, I asked a friend of a neighbor who knew someone down the street, and they said, no, go knock on his damn door and ask. Go to the source. And that's, look, in my business outside of this show, you have to go to the person. And I'm glad to hear y'all both say this. And John, I mean, like I said, stay on as long as you can, but we all, as an athletic director, you've got 21 sports teams or 17 at ULM. You got 17 coaches that you're managing. You're kind of like, Merv Griffin, as I call Maury Gaston, but you're like an eight.
Knew that was coming.
Coaches, but I'm with Kevin, and Buddy knows this. Man, every time I go to Lake Martin, I go by Stillwaters, and I just think about and Kevin can remember Coach Dye's gatherings out there, and the card playing, and the storytelling, and the fun. But you know what? They had relationships. Without relationships, how do you have trust?
Yeah, no question. Well, I mean, and I know you guys have heard some of these, and boy, you talk about time traveling and want to go back to have been able to maybe for a 15-minute snippet back when Coach Bryant, Coach Jordan, Coach Vault, and those guys would get together on the top floor of the hotel in Jackson, Mississippi, or they would get together in Birmingham and have some fellowship there. But that, I mean, those types of relationships where you have the trust and you weren't so damn, shielded and saying, oh, I can't let down my guard. I've got to protect all this to myself. You look at guys that are really successful, and we all have our inner circle. We all have those, whether it's 4, 5, 6, or 8 folks who know you better than anybody there is. And I think that's valuable. I think when you isolate yourself and shut yourself off and stay so standoffish, regardless whether you're in athletics or you're a CEO or anything else, I think you lose touch with the real world.
Yeah.
On October 8th of 2021, Coach Jordan's statue was unveiled at Jordan-Hare Stadium. And because Rob has a relationship with Ralph Jordan Jr., he had an hour-long interview on this program with Ralph Jordan Jr. that told remarkable stories involving his dad, Coach Bryant.
Wally Butts was his godfather.
Coach Rupp, Wally Butts was his godfather. He was born in Athens, Georgia. If you haven't heard that already, Rob has activated that link. It's October 8th of 2021. Absolutely fascinating interview. and great stories from Ralph Jr.
And to me, it gets down to why do we consume media? Back when we were kids, we and our parents watched Walter Cronkite because we trusted him. Maury used to read Hugh Sidey because he trusted him. Locally in Birmingham, we watched Joe Langston because we trusted him. Now we consume media, or many consume media, because how many followers do they have? And if I can glam myself onto them because they have so many followers, maybe I'll get followers too. Doesn't matter what they say or what I say. I'm just trying to get followers because maybe my status, at least in my own mind, goes up because I have more followers. Maybe I can monetize my followership. And that's just so depraved. And that's not social media's fault, in my opinion. That's the human being's fault. But
yeah, it is. And Buddy and Kevin as writers, both of y'all, it doesn't matter what age you are. As long as you can do it, keep doing it. And Buddy and Kevin, both of y'all, when you are writing, you're thinking about what you're doing. My dad says there's nothing uglier in the world than a half-finished painting. And there's nothing worse than trying to read journalism, what they call journalism, that's one giant run-on sentence with no structure to it. And Buddy, to young people out there that are listening that might have an iPhone. And by the way, Arkansas fans, big news, Selman Bridges committed to the Razorbacks over Southern Cal, Texas, and TCU. Razorbacks now ranked number 16 in the country. He said Marcus Woodson and Travis Williams and Sam Pittman. Of course, I told Dudley Dawson, Marcus and Travis had been at Auburn and they've been at Florida State, Central Florida. They can recruit. But Buddy, what you say and what Kevin says, GatorbaitMedia.com, the Birmingham Lead, now Scarbo knows. There are more and more people I know that are intelligent, that have living gray brain matter. They read. They don't just get sound bites. So keep on, as Willie Nelson said, keep on keeping on, buddy. You're getting better. You're like a great bottle of wine.
Well, listen, I thought Florida signed a guy named Kendall Jackson this week. I thought we signed a winery. He's a defensive lineman from Gainesville, and that's the thing about Billy. Billy talked about signing guys local. This guy's as local as it gets. He's a Gainesville guy. And I bring that up because you got to get the ones in your own backyard. And I went back online, and someone put a thread up and said, what's your first recollection of Tennessee, Florida? There's a bunch of people remembered, the Peyton Manning games, whatever. So, and I wrote down 1955. Tennessee Vols come to what was not even the swamp then, and a guy named Tommy Bronson, who was a Gainesville guy, came back there and they beat, I think that was a national championship team, or was it 56? Anyway, they won the national championship. Tommy Bronson, none of us the other football player, he stayed at Tennessee. He was the president of the student body at Tennessee from right there in Gainesville. When you lose one that close to home, that hurts. Don't ever want to lose to Tommy Bronson's. And now they got Kendall Jackson. They got their own free wine.
And it only matters who won the national championship in 1957.
There you go, Dave.
Okay.
Hey, buddy, I appreciate you expanding Rob's wine vocabulary, because Ripple and Boone's Farm were the only two that were in his repertoire.
Fred G's favorite. Hey, but Tommy Bronson. Hey, I got to say this, buddy.
Right year.
Buddy, we had a sporting goods store in Memphis that lasted about 75 or 80 years. Tommy Bronson's Sporting Goods.
Really?
I'm going to have to go back and do my work on that. They closed down back, 2015, 2016. But, you connect these dots. I love that story. Kevin, you know the stories. Buddy does. We all do. But had that reporter not been there from the New York Times, I still remember.
Joe Durso.
Yeah, Joe Durso. And these, Kevin, you've been in a lot of press boxes. You have, John, as an athletic director. Man, you're sitting in the good seats. Buddy, you have too. Why in the hell? I know it's about premium seating, but your media are your eyes and ears. They tell your stories. I would be very careful about putting them over in the corner. I mean, I don't always agree with what they say, but we ardently and fervently fight for and defend the right to free speech on this show. Once we're up in the air and the wheels are up, feel free to walk around the cabin and say what you want as long as you can back it up. It's responsible. But John, this is a hell of a round table. And first off, thanks every one of y'all for taking time out of your Saturday to join us, because we cover sports, but we get the best guests, and we got them right here. Hollywood Squares. I feel like where's Jonathan Winters over there? That's Maury.
Paul Lynn.
Paul Lynn. But I love this discussion about calling it the press. That's what we're going to call the press roundtable.
Hey, it's not called the media box. It's called the press box. Okay.
That's right. Damn right. Full court press, not full court media.
Amen and hallelujah.
Yeah. I think that is, and again, you talk about retro, time traveler. My wife and my oldest one, Maury, think I'm a time traveler. And my first wife thinks my youngest son is a time traveler, that he was born in the early 70s, because he's 23, and I will never forget taking him when he was 13, 20 feet from the front stage to see Robert Plant live at the Garden, sponsored by Duncan Williams here in Memphis. And then he went to Foreigner and got the lead guitarist guitar pick and the song list, and was high-fiving him, and was in the mosh pit with all the girls being body surfed the whole time. Some people are time travelers. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe we all are. Good thing.
John, how was your week in Birmingham?
It was good. Actually, it was about 36 hours, but it was, we had, I was one of 4 ADs there, and we had, I guess 8 or 9 coordinators there, and the guys there, Patrick Strong and Russ Campbell, agents there, put on a deal every year where they allow some of those coordinators to go through mock interviews and have feedback from us athletic directors. So it was really good. And, you talk about guys in this business and folks, from generation to generation. Travis Trickett, who is now the offensive coordinator at Coastal Carolina, and a lot of folks are familiar with his dad, and time at Samford, time at Auburn, but good spending time with him. Jeff Grimes was there, so got to engage some old friends and some people I'd known in the business. But it was a good couple of days. Sorry I missed you.
Well, that's a great thing to teach someone how to go through an interview. I mean, and buddy, you and Kevin putting out so much content. So before we go, we got a few more minutes left, but buddy, I want you to tell people how they can subscribe to you, because we got to have you. We got to have you, Kevin, John at ULM. I love what you're doing this fall. You're going to have 3 big country stars. One of them is Lainey Wilson that I see on Yellowstone. She's pretty damn good. And then another guy, it's not George Strait, Dylan Strait.
Dylan Scott from the booming metropolis of Bastrop, right up the road.
I know where that is.
Yeah, we're working on that. And then the third guy is a guy named somebody McGraw. I think Tim, maybe his first name. Who actually
not
here for a couple of years. So it's actually going to be next spring, but we're working on pulling that together.
That'll be awesome. But buddy, let people know how they can follow you on Gatorbait Media. And Allie Peak Wilbur was on the show this week. I tried to get Ben Troop, didn't hear back from him. I hope everything's okay. And I think he's doing a camp
Thursday.
Yeah, he's doing a camp, I think, but he's doing
uncommon.
Yeah.
Well, well, first of all, thank you for bringing that up. We're a mom and pop, but we're undergoing some changes for the better. We're going to announce a new member, a new well-known person on the show, or regularly on Best Fridays in Football. That's our show. It's on 9:00 Monday through Thursday right now. And we have, like you, great guests. And Rob, I'm counting on you to come to me from the SEC Media Days again this year.
I'm ready every day you need me.
Yeah. And then our product by Brendan Martin, who's the president of the company, runs it. We're a boutique. We're not ever going to be 247 or On 3, whatever. But we got some terrific young reporters who are working with us now. And, of course, Franz Beard, you know about him. And we produce new content every day. If you want to join it, there's several plans. Go to GatorbaitMedia.com. Check it out. We'd love to hear from you because we're a mom and pop just trying to keep on keeping on. And looking forward to folks being introduced. If you're a Gator fan, you need to have it.
It's great stuff. Kevin, let them know how they can follow you, and then John, and we'll tag out. But I use it as show prep every morning.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, great stuff that Buddy and his team do every day. Yeah, you can find my stuff. The best way is follow me on Twitter at Kevin Scarbinsky, because I link to everything that I do. I do write a Sunday column in the Birmingham Lead, and you can go to Birmingham Lead, and that's LEDE.com, the journalism spelling, to get a subscription there. But I also have just started a newsletter that comes out every Thursday. So you can go to al.com/sports to sign up for that. You can go to my Twitter and find a link. And that really just allows me to touch on more subjects on Thursdays rather than a single subject column. So you can find all of that. Like I said, basically follow me through my Twitter, and hopefully you'll sample it and enjoy it and subscribe.
I'm doing it. And John, they can follow you at ULM Warhawks. I love that name.
Yeah, ULMwarhawks.com, John_Hartwell on Twitter. Hey, Dave, let's talk, because I'd love to host you down here.
Thank you so much.
That Labor Day weekend, Saturday. And guys, and Rob, you always have tremendous folks on. Love being on. Kevin, Buddy, Maury, all of you guys, appreciate it. And you all have a great weekend.
But we'll do.
I've got a prediction. With us going to the 12-team playoff, the Sun Belt will have a team in the playoff by 2025. And as long as Jeff Monken stays at Army, we will be in the playoff before I qualify for Medicare.
Hey, Maury, have a good bus trip back from Washington. I understand your flight was canceled. If you leave on the bus this afternoon, you'll be home Tuesday. But, buddy, I'm looking forward to doing media reports for Gatorbait Media live from Nashville. And to all of you, our guests and everybody, man, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Never miss an opportunity to thank people who help you along the way. Age is just a number, man. Everybody shoot for 100, and then we'll talk about retirement on a 10-year plan after that. Have a great weekend. We're out of here. See you Monday. Thanks.